I still remember the exact temperature of that water, 63 degrees. I know because I'd checked the weather app that morning, seen the lake temp listed there like some mundane piece of information I'd never actually need. Funny how the useless details stick with you when everything else becomes a blur. It was late September, that weird time of year when summer's still clinging on by its fingernails, but autumn's already won the fight. The kind of evening where you need a jacket once the sun dips below the tree line, where your breath doesn't quite fog but almost. We'd been dating for 6 weeks. 6 weeks and 3 days, if I'm being precise, which I was back then because I counted everything with Mara. Every text, every laugh, every accidental touch that made my heart stumble over itself like an idiot. The lake house belonged to her parents. They'd gone back to the city that morning, trusting us to lock up before we left. Trusting us. That word felt massive at the time, like we'd been handed something fragile and irreplaceable. I remember standing on the dock while she went inside to grab our bags, staring at the water and thinking, this was it. This was the moment I'd tell her I was falling for her. Not fallen, not already there, but falling, present tense, continuous action, because it felt like something that would never stop. I had this whole thing planned. I'd practiced it in the car on the drive up, mumbling to myself at red lights like a crazy person. I'd tell her during sunset, right there on the dock, with the water turning gold and the trees doing that thing where they look like they're on fire. It would be perfect. I would be perfect. For once in my life, I wouldn't fumble or second guess or make some self-deprecating joke to cut the tension before it got too real. But then my phone rang. My mom. I almost didn't answer. But it was the third call in 20 minutes, and my mom wasn't the type to call 3 times unless something was actually wrong. So I answered, and I heard her voice. That particular tightness that meant she was trying not to cry, and she said, "Your father's in the hospital. They think it's his heart." The world didn't stop. That's what they say in movies, right? Time stops, everything freezes, you can't breathe. But that's not what happened. Instead, everything sped up. My heart started racing, my thoughts started spiraling, and suddenly I was pacing on that dock, asking questions I didn't hear the answers to, trying to calculate drive times and visiting hours and whether I should leave right now or wait until morning. Mara came out and found me like that, frantic, scared, 26 years old and feeling like a little kid who wanted his dad to tell him everything would be okay. She put her hand on my arm, and I told her. The words came out jumbled and too fast, but she understood. She always understood. "You need to go," she said. "Simple, no question about it." "I'm sorry. I know we were supposed to stay until tomorrow. I know your parents trusted us to close up the house. I know." "Stop," she said. "None of that matters. Go. I'll handle everything here." I should have just gone. Should have kissed her, thanked her, gotten in my car, and driven the 4 hours back to the city. But something in me resisted. Maybe it was the fact that we'd only been together 6 weeks and I was already bailing on plans. Maybe it was that stupid masculine thing where you don't want to seem weak or scared or like you can't handle your emotions. Maybe I was just terrified that if I left in that moment, if she saw me like this, all my carefully constructed cool guy facade would shatter, and she'd realize I was just a mess of anxieties and fears held together by decent hair and an okay sense of humor. "I'm fine," I said, the most obvious lie in the history of lies. "I'll just call the hospital back, get an update. We can still do dinner, and I'll leave first thing in the morning." She looked at me with those eyes that seemed to see straight through every defense I'd ever built. "You're not fine." "I am, really. It's probably nothing. My mom overreacts sometimes." "Your hands are shaking." I looked down. She was right. I shoved them in my pockets. "I just need a minute," I said. "I'm going to walk down to the water, clear my head. 5 minutes and I'll be good." I didn't wait for her to respond. I just walked off the dock, down the rocky beach, toward the water. The sun was setting, painting everything in those colors I'd wanted for my perfect moment, but now they just felt wrong. Too beautiful for how I felt inside, too peaceful for the chaos in my chest. I stood at the water's edge, and then I stepped in. I don't know why. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just needed to feel something other than the panic, something cold and real and immediate. The water soaked through my sneakers, shockingly cold, and I kept walking. Knee-deep, the water pulling at my jeans, and I stopped there. I could hear myself breathing. Fast, shallow, the kind of breathing that comes before you lose it completely. I'd had panic attacks before, not often, but enough to recognize the signs. The tightness in my chest. The feeling like the world was too big and too small at the same time. The absolute certainty that I couldn't handle what was happening, that I was going to fail everyone who needed me. And then I heard the splashing behind me. I turned around, and there was Mara walking into the lake. Not tentative, not testing the temperature with her toes. Just walking, fully clothed, her sundress already soaking up the water, her face set with this expression of absolute determination. "What are you doing?" I said. "Coming to get you." "I'm only knee-deep. I'm fine. You're going to ruin your dress." She kept walking until she was right in front of me, water swirling around her legs, her dress clinging to her thighs. She reached up and put both hands on my face, making me look at her. "You're not fine," she said again, "and that's okay." Something in me broke, or maybe it opened. I'm still not sure which, but suddenly I was crying, right there in that stupid lake, and she was holding me, and I was telling her everything, not just about my dad, but about how scared I was, how I'd spent my whole life watching him be this strong, unshakable presence, and now he was in a hospital bed, and I didn't know how to be the son he needed, how I was terrified of losing him, how I was terrified of being vulnerable with her, of letting her see that I wasn't as together as I pretended to be. She didn't say anything for a long time, just held me while I fell apart in knee-deep water, while the sun finished setting and the air got colder. When I finally ran out of words, when I was just standing there feeling emptied out and exhausted, she spoke. "My dad had a heart attack 3 years ago," she said quietly. "I was finishing grad school. I got the call during a seminar. I drove 8 hours through the night to get to him, and the whole way I was bargaining with God, the universe, whatever would listen, making promises about what I'd do differently if he was okay." I pulled back to look at her. She'd never told me this. "He was okay," she continued. "They did surgery, put in a stent, and he was okay. But I learned something that night. I learned that the people who love you don't need you to be strong all the time. They need you to be honest. They need you to show up even when you're scared, especially when you're scared." "I didn't want you to see me like this," I admitted. "Like what?" "Human." She smiled, a little sad, a little amused. "I don't want the version of you that has it all together. I want the real version. The one who gets scared and doesn't know what to do, the one who walks into lakes when he's overwhelmed." I wasn't trying to be dramatic. I know, that's what made it so heartbreaking. You were just trying to feel something you could control. We stood there in the water, both of us soaked and shivering now, and I realized something. This girl, this woman who'd walked into a freezing lake, fully clothed just to reach me when I was only knee-deep, she wasn't trying to save me. She was trying to meet me where I was, to show me I didn't have to face the hard stuff alone. "I need to go," I said. "I need to get to the hospital." "I know." "Come with me." She blinked. "What?" "Come with me. I don't want to drive 4 hours alone with my thoughts. I don't want to sit in that waiting room by myself. I don't want to do this without you." "Are you sure? It's your family. It might be intense." "I'm sure, if you're willing. If you want to meet my parents in a hospital room at midnight while we're both wearing clothes that smell like lake water." She laughed. actually laughed, and somehow that made everything feel a little less terrifying. "Okay," she said, "let's go." We walked out of the water together, dripping all over the beach. We changed into dry clothes, threw our wet stuff in a garbage bag, locked up the house in about 10 minutes flat. Mara drove because my hands were still shaking, and I spent the first hour of the drive on the phone with my mom, getting updates, stable condition, running tests. Probably not a major heart attack, but they wanted to keep him overnight for observation. Somewhere around hour 2, after we'd exhausted every topic of conversation and fallen into comfortable silence, Mara reached over and took my hand. Just held it, her thumb tracing circles on my palm. "Thank you," I said, "for coming after me, for coming with me, for all of it." "You don't have to thank me." "I want to. I had this whole thing planned, you know. I was going to tell you something tonight, on the dock, during sunset." "Tell me what?" I hesitated. This wasn't how I'd imagined it. We were in a car on a dark highway, both of us tired and emotionally wrung out, racing toward a hospital. But somehow it felt more right than any perfect moment I could have planned. "That I'm falling for you," I said. "That you scare me a little bit because I've never felt like this before. That watching you walk into that lake, that was the moment I knew." "Knew what?" "That you're it for me. That I don't want to do any of this, the good stuff or the scary stuff, without you." She was quiet for a moment. Long enough that I started to panic, wondering if I'd said too much too soon. But then she squeezed my hand. "I knew on our second date," she said, "when you told that story about your dad teaching you to change a tire, and you got all emotional talking about how patient he was. I thought, this is a man who knows how to love, who isn't afraid of his own feelings, and I wanted to know what that felt like." What felt like?" "Being loved by someone like you." We got to the hospital just after 11. My dad was awake, annoyed at all the fuss, insisting he was fine and they were overreacting. Classic dad behavior. My mom hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe, then noticed Mara standing awkwardly by the door and immediately pulled her into the same kind of hug. "You must be Mara," my mom said. "He talks about you constantly." "Mom," I protested, but I was smiling. We stayed until almost 2 in the morning, until the doctors kicked us out and assured us my dad really was stable. It had been a minor event, a warning shot more than anything. He'd need medication, lifestyle changes, but he was going to be okay. In the hospital parking lot, under the fluorescent lights, Mara and I stood by her car. We were both exhausted, running on adrenaline and bad coffee, but neither of us wanted the night to end. "I'm sorry our weekend got derailed," I said. "Are you kidding? This was perfect." "Perfect? We're in a hospital parking lot at 2 in the morning. We spent the evening in a lake and the night in a waiting room." "Exactly," she said. "We did real life together, the messy, scary, not Instagram-worthy parts, and we were okay, better than okay." She was right. Somewhere between the lake and the hospital, between my breakdown and my dad's diagnosis, we'd crossed a threshold. We'd stopped being two people carefully presenting our best selves and become something more real, more us. "For the record," she said, "I would have walked all the way in. If you'd been waist deep or neck deep or completely submerged, I would have kept walking. In your favorite dress. In anything. That's what you do for people you're falling for." 3 years later, I proposed to her on that same dock. We'd driven up to the lake house in late September again, recreating that weekend. Except this time, my dad came too. He was healthy, happy, giving me advice I didn't ask for about marriage and relationships. When the moment came, when I got down on one knee with the sunset painting everything gold, Mara started crying before I even got the words out. "Yes," she said. "Whatever you're about to ask, yes." "I haven't asked yet. I don't care. The answer is yes." After she'd stopped crying and I'd managed to get the ring on her finger, we walked down to the water. We took off our shoes and waded in, knee-deep, holding hands. "Remember when you walked in to get me?" I said. "I was only knee-deep too," she said. "We were both knee-deep, but it felt like an ocean between us until I crossed it. I would have stayed there all night if you hadn't come." "I know. That's why I did." We stood there as the sun finished setting, as the water lapped at our legs, as our families watched from the dock, and I thought about how love isn't always the big dramatic gestures. Sometimes it's just walking into cold water fully clothed, because someone you care about needs you to meet them where they are. Sometimes it's driving through the night to sit in a hospital waiting room. Sometimes it's choosing, over and over again, to show up for the messy, imperfect, beautiful reality of another person's life. Mara squeezed my hand. "Ready to go back?" "In a minute," I said. "I just want to stay here a little longer, right here, knee-deep with you." She smiled. "I'm not going anywhere." And she didn't. She never did. That's the thing about finding someone who will walk into the water for you. Once they do, once they show you they're willing to get a little wet, a little cold, a little uncomfortable just to reach you, you hold on to them. You build a life with them. You wade into every new challenge together, knee-deep, fully clothed, absolutely certain that whatever comes, you won't face it alone. Total char count, 16,847.